UFC 312, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland 2, the rematch to their controversial first fight. Looking back on it, I see why du Plessis won. I was about to say Strickland. I do think this one warrants a rematch. It was close enough that it should have been a draw. So I'm glad we got this one. I know there are more exciting matchups out there, like the Hamzat Chimaev fight. Imavov is obviously next up, but I do think just for the sport, I do think this fight needed to happen. So I'm glad it's happening. Now, I'm not gonna lie, outside of the main and co-main event, this card kind of blows ass. Everyone's talked about it, everyone's bitched about it. I'm not really adding anything to the conversation in saying that, but no, this one sucks. People were complaining about 301 last year. At least they had Jose Aldo on the feature fight, bro. Or I think he was the feature fight. Maybe he was the co-main. Either way, this is the worst pay-per-view we've had in recent memory. I don't want to be a negative Nancy or anything, but when you're charging people $80, can we at least make the main card worth it, you know? I would say this is basically, when you go through the matchups, it's pretty much a really good Apex sleeper hit card, where it's like, no one knows any of the names, but when you go and watch the tape and do the film study on this matchup and that matchup, pretty much all of them will be fun, I think. I don't think there'll be any boring fights on this card. It'll be one of those where we look back and we go, yeah, on paper, that was kind of shit, but it delivered. So yeah, this is basically an Apex card with a couple title fights attached to it, which sucks. But what can you do? No one wants to fight in Australia because they tax the shit out of the fighters, so there's not much we can do about that. They should probably just do fight nights in Australia if that's going to be the case, but whatever. Let's get into it. First fight on the card, we got Hyung Sung Park versus Niam Jargal Tumendem Burrell. I did that the first try. That is a long-ass name. Okay, so this one is... There are a decent few fights on this card like this where these guys aren't exactly proven. Both guys only have I think Hyung Sung Park only has 2 fights in the UFC. Niam Jargal lost his debut. I'm going with Hyung Sung Park on this one. I just think he's slicker, quicker, hits harder, good everywhere. Niam Jargal he hits hard, he has some thud in his strikes, but he's more of a grappler, but he's just not as coordinated on the feet. I just think Hyun Sung Park is gonna piece him up a little bit. I don't have too much to say about this one. It should be a decent fight. Got some weird ass names on this one. We got Quillen Salkilled versus Anshul Jubli. Jubli's coming back after basically a 1.5 year long layoff after getting knocked out by Mike Breeden, which is oof. And Quinlan Salkilled is coming off a win on Dana White's Contender Series. Back and forth scrap with Gage Young, I believe his name was. That was a great fight. This one, the odds aren't posted on here, but Quillen Salkilled is a crazy favorite. He's like a -400. And I don't really know that it's that cut and dry. I am going to be going with Quillen Salkilled. One thing that makes me a little uncomfortable on this card is that I did go for a lot of favorites. Quillen Salkilled is the favorite, and I don't like doing that, but you know, for the most part, it just kind of checked out. They're favorites for a reason. I do think he should be the favorite, but I don't know if a -400 is that reasonable. Anshul Jubli's still good. He's still slick on the feet and has really good grappling. I just think Quillen Salkilled has the dimensions on him. I mean, that reach advantage. Leg reach isn't that much better, but he has 6 inches. And Anshul Jubli against Mike Breeden was eating some right hands, like over and over and over again. When I say that Jubli is slick on the feet, I mean he's slick offensively, because defensively he kind of sucks. His head doesn't really move, and Quillen Salkilled has really nice head kicks, really nice body kicks too, probably land those, and a really good 1-2 down the pipe. He was clubbing Gage Young in their fight, and Anshul Jubli kind of blocks punches with his forehead. So I think it'll be competitive, it'll be a good fight, but I just think Salkilled's going to be able to, he'll have more ability to hurt Jubli. Jubli's probably going to want to take this in the grappling. Salkilled's good there too. So yeah, I do think he should win this. I don't think it's going to look like a -400 versus a whatever Jubli's odds are performance. I think it's going to be a pretty good fight. Next we got Jonathan Mikalev versus Kevin Jousset. Picking another favorite here. I'm going Kevin Jousset. Comes out of City Kickboxing. He's a French guy, but trains out of Auckland, New Zealand, with the Israel Adesanya crowd. Kevin Jousset is pretty solid. He's coming off of that loss to Brian Battle, but in his other fights in the UFC, he looked really good. Like a little flat-footed, I guess, but just really defensively responsible, nice clean strikes. And Jonathan Mikalev is definitely, how do you say his name? Mikalev? I do this every card. There's someone who I don't know how to say their name, and I sound like a fucking moron. He's definitely more of a jiu-jitsu guy. He's always fishing for submissions. Striking is kind of not very good. Kevin Jousset's grappling was tested in the Brian Battle fight, and he was able, there was a lot of clinching in that one. In the striking, he got lit up. I don't think Mikalev is going to be able to do that to him, though. Brian Battle just has that freakish pace. He's an animal. I don't think Kevin Jousset's stock should drop too much from that loss, but yeah, I'm gonna go with him. Closing out the early prelims, we got Rongju versus Cody Steele. I'm doing it again. I'm going with another favorite. Rongju. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC. He's been around for a while, but he's only had 2. He was on the Masvidal versus Usman 2 card, the first one back after COVID in like a big arena. That was a pretty fun ass fight. This dude's definitely got very fan-friendly style, a lot of striking, a lot of blood. So that was damn near 4 years ago, and he didn't fight for 3 of them. He came back last year, had a TKO loss, doctor stoppage because he was elbowed in the eyeball and it basically turned into a golf ball. So yeah, he has a fun striking style, but is maybe there's not as much method to the madness. It's kind of wild. He can get figured out. He doesn't really make adjustments like that. Cody Steele isn't as good on the feet. He's a grappling dude. He's from the jiu-jitsu background, but he has developed some nasty power in his hands. He kind of reminds me of Michael Chandler, just a very short, stocky lightweight who's, throwing these looping hooks and has some thud in them, but maybe not the most technical thing. He does kind of leave his head up there. I just think with mixing in the grappling, he's going to be able to catch Rongju with something. I do think this one in particular is one of those that I mentioned where no one knows either of these two guys, but this fight is this has fight of the night written all over it. It's going to be a really cool fight, I think. So yeah, starting off, we have literally every single fight in the first 4 has someone with a black and white or borderline black and white photo, which means they came off Contender Series. Or in Jermaine Deverell's case, it came off of Road to UFC. So yeah, not pay-per-view worthy, but these should all be pretty fun fights regardless. Like nothing here should be boring, really. Okay, these don't have photos for some reason, but we have Ilia Toporia's brother, Alex Topuria, taking on, I'm not kidding, this is what his name is, Colby Slickness Thickness. Why would you pick that nickname? That's terrible. Anyway, this one, I don't really have too much to say on it, if I'm being real. This one, I am going to be picking Topuria. He basically fights like his brother. He should be good enough to beat this guy. He's good on the ground. He has nice boxing. He's basically bantamweight Ilia. Colby Thickness is good. He has some submissions on his record. He's talented. He's a champ over there at I believe it's called Hex Fighting Promotion. But like both guys, to me, it's not too much to write home about. Like this is one that people are excited for. If the dude's name wasn't Topuria, I wouldn't give a flying shit about this fight. It probably wouldn't be happening if his name wasn't Topuria, because neither of these guys are in the UFC. Neither guy was on Contender Series, Ultimate Fighter, anything like that. So that's the only reason why it's happening at all. But I don't really care about this fight. Sorry. Next, we got the return of Kong Wang versus Bruna Brazil. This is a striker versus striker matchup, and I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm gonna pick Kong Wang because of how she looked in her last performance. She got heavily fraud checked. She was like a minus 800 favorite or something. Everyone was picking her. She got submitted. I'm scared to pick her again. I don't want to be burned twice. But Bruna Brazil is a much more favorable matchup. She's a good striker in her own right, very rangy, but Kong Wang is just better. She's just got more finishing potential. She's more dangerous. And I hope she wins because we need people like this in the women's division. We need people who got some pop, who got some mean energy, and she's got her whole Joker thing going. We need some flair. So Kong Wang by KO, probably. I think it's going to be a pretty fun striker matchup. I just think Kong Wang's quicker and hits harder. So next we got Australia's own Tom Nolan versus Vyacheslav Barshov. Another largely striker versus striker matchup. Like I said, not really that many big names on this card at all. Not worth the price, but these should all be pretty fun. Barshov, both guys really have really sick striking, both dangerous. I really wanted to pick Tom Nolan. He had a rough debut against Nicholas Mata. Mata hits like a truck. I think that's fine. But then he's come back with a couple wins. He's looked good. He's got the range. He's got the finishing instinct, the aggression. I really wanted to pick Tom Nolan, especially if he can use some grappling against Barshov, because we saw Barshov get thwomped by Chase Hooper. But I just can't do it. I cannot in good conscience pick Tom Nolan to win this fight when even in the 2 fights that he won and the one where he didn't win, he gets hurt every single time. He is super rangy and moves around well, and he's responsible, but then when he hurts people, because he has power in his hands, when he hurts them, he has a tendency to rush in and get himself hurt. It happens every single time. He gets too aggressive, leaves his chin in the air, gets countered. What is Vyacheslav Barshov really good at doing? Counter punching, getting out the way, planting his feet, right hand. I've seen him land that punch, pull counter. He's gonna land it on Nolan. He's probably gonna finish him. Barshov doesn't hit the hardest, but Nolan's chin's kind of testy. He's got that Robert Whittaker chin, where it's like it can hold up to a certain level of scrutiny. I think what's gonna happen is Tom Nolan's gonna look really good early, and he's probably gonna catch Barshov with something that maybe wobbles him a little bit. He's gonna move in, get countered, finished. I'm picking Vyacheslav Barshov. This one should also be a banger. We got Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Both guys come to scrap. Both guys couldn't have a boring fight if they tried. Gabriel Santos is definitely more slick. I'm tempted. He is the favorite. I'm tempted to pick him, but I'm gonna be risky with this one. I'm gonna pick Jack Jenkins. He's shorter. He's stockier. He doesn't have really any advantages, but he just comes to scrap every time, and he has power in his hands. And he does have a win over Jamal Emmers. And Jamal Emmers is a rangier, slick, more technical striker, and he was able to beat him. So I could see him finding a way to kind of outman Gabriel Santos a little bit. I'm going to go with him by a split decision. It's going to be close. This is going to be a good fight. Opening up the main card is Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado on an $80 pay-per-view. Ugh. Yeah, this is where it starts to get a little stinky. Like, the prelims being the way they are, fine, they're free. You can just tune into ESPN and watch them, and they should all be fun fights. And so should this one. Not a single fight on this card is boring. It's just the name value isn't there, and this fight doesn't have any implications at all. I like both of these guys, but Jake Matthews isn't ranked at welterweight. Francisco Prado is coming up from lightweight. What is this doing opening up a main card of a pay-per-view? Like, this is a good prelim fight. If this was down with the rest of them, I'd say, yeah, fuck it. This is a fun matchup, but there's just nothing to come from this one. If Prado wins this, he doesn't get to, I mean, is he going to stay up at welterweight or is he going to go back down to lightweight? Like, it's a bit of a weird matchup. Maybe he's trying to stay up there, but he's not biggest dude, so I don't know. Either way, I'm going Jake Matthews on this one. Again, favorite after favorite after favorite. I just think, he's used to the weight class. He's faster. I think he moves better. Prado is good at marching people down, and, they're both really dangerous on the feet, and Prado maybe hits harder, but I just think Jake Matthews is going to be able to outwork him, take it to a decision, something like that. This is going to be a really fun fight. Next, we have the return of Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato. I wanted to pick Jimmy Crute. It's like there was like a green goblin hovering on my wall telling me to pick fighters that I shouldn't pick on this one, but I'm going to be intelligent. I want to pick Jimmy Crute because my thinking is we don't really know how good Rodolfo Bellato is. He did kind of go life and death with Potieria, who just got cut because he lost to everyone. This dude almost got finished by that dude who should have been a middleweight the whole time anyway. He did get the finish though, and he did look aggressive. He looked bloodthirsty in that fight, frankly. Honestly, I think this is a pretty good matchup. I don't think either dude's really that good. There are a couple bruisers. Jimmy Crute's got probably the grappling advantage between the two of them. I think Jimmy Crute could win this. This is why the odds aren't that wide, but I can't pick him. I can't pick him to win this. He loses to everyone. He lost to everyone. And badly. He lost badly to Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is, deserving of a ranking spot. Anthony Smith is good, but he lost by leg kick TKO in the first round to Anthony Smith. What? Then he gets knocked out by Jamal Hill very quickly. Then gets his ass beat by Alonzo Metafield, takes a draw because Alonzo grabbed the cage, gets the rematch, gets submitted. Like, he's supposed to be the submission guy, gets submitted by Alonzo Metafield. What the fuck's going on? So yeah, I think Jimmy Crute's had a bit of a rough go of it. He's still young. He can still learn. He's huge. He hits hard. He has the submissions. I'd like to pick him, but I can't. I'm picking Rodolfo Bellato to probably catch him and put him away. But if Jimmy Crute does win, I will cheer him on. I will cheer the guy on. We have a Dana White Contender Series winner and UFC debutant as the feature fight of the evening, taking on Justin Tafa. Okay, I'm gonna be stupid on this one. I'm gonna pick Justin Tafa to win. We don't know how good Taliesin Teixeira is. I know he's huge. He's 6'7", 83-inch reach. He has KO power. He's a monster. I get it. Justin Tafa just knocked out 6'7" Austin Lane like a year ago. He knows how to fight taller heavyweights. He's not the tallest one himself. He knows how to deal with disadvantages in that way, and he's good at getting on in the inside, throwing hooks, putting people to sleep. Justin Tafa is one of the more reliable fighters in this division to put on good fights and get the knockout and make it exciting. I like Justin Tafa a lot. Taliesin Teixeira probably should win this, but we don't know about things like, what about octagon jitters? What if, I'm pretty sure this is a pretty short notice one, maybe he's not ready. Maybe Justin Tafa implements some grappling he's not ready for. I don't know. I just think I'm going to pick experience on this one. He's literally on, in his debut is the feature fight on a pay-per-view. Justin Tafa has the home crowd advantage. They're going to be booing the guy. I'm looking at all these other external factors and I'm stacking it against how tall he is, because Justin Tafa knows how to deal with that. I think he's going to catch him in the first round. I think it's going to be crazy. The crowd's going to explode. The roof is going to blow off. It's going to be crazy. Crazy upset. I actually don't even think it's the margins that wide. I don't know why half of these don't have the odds posted. Tafa's definitely the underdog. I'm going with him. I believe in Justin Tafa to get this knockout. All right, now we're at the co-main event of the evening. Zhang Weili taking on Tatiana Suarez. Now, this is one of two genuinely worthwhile fights on this card. This is probably the best women's fight that I can think of in recent memory. We have a dominant champion in Zhang Weili, who's just beating everyone either by finish or mogging them to a decision and making it look easy. Then we have Tatiana Suarez, who hasn't lost in the UFC. His wins over Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza, Jessica Andrade. She is relentless with the grappling. She sticks to people like glue. Once she gets a hold of you, it's hard to get her off. A lot of people are going to be picking Tatiana Suarez because of her dominance in other fights. I was tempted to pick her to become the and new, but I'm going to stick with Zhang Weili on this one. I think she can probably beat her by a decision. I think it'll be like a 3 rounds to 2 type deal. I think Tatiana will probably steal a couple of early rounds, maybe the first round, but Zhang Weili, with her training with Henry Cejudo, her grappling herself has gotten really good. Like, she's added a good few wrinkles to her game. I don't think it's just going to be Tatiana Suarez takes down Zhang Weili and submits her or grinds on her for 25 minutes. I don't see that happening. I think Zhang Weili is going to be able to buck her off. She's explosive. She's like a cat in there, and I think she'll be able to defend the takedowns enough and light her up on the feet. I got Zhang Weili. In the main event, we got Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland again. This time DDP is the champ and Strickland is the contender. So this one definitely warranted a couple rewatches of their first fight, because initially when I think about this fight, I think, oh, well, it's probably just going to go the same way. Like, both guys are pretty evenly matched, very different styles, obviously, but it was kind of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, where Strickland's defense was so good that DDP was struggling to even land anything in that first round, but then he kind of figured him out, and they were kind of mitigating each other a little bit. Like, DDP was pressing the action, but wasn't really able to land as much as he normally does. He'd try and take down Strickland would reverse it. They were canceling each other out in that fight. And a lot of people say Strickland should have won. Beforehand, I was picking DDP to probably win anyway, but having rewatched the fight, I more or less just affirmed my opinion. I think DDP is going to take this one. I think it's going to be easier. Initially, I thought it would pretty much just look the same. It would be close again. DDP would win by a close decision and Strickland would be pissed off. I'm not saying I think that DDP is going to finish Sean Strickland. I don't know if he can do that, but I do think DDP is going to take the decision, and it's going to be a little more obvious this time. I think the issue with the first fight is that DDP was basically forced to fight Sean Strickland in a Sean Strickland fight. Even though DDP won, Strickland led the dance. It was a Sean Strickland fight. Very close, jabs, teeps, and DDP trying to land shit, not being able to. But by the same token, Sean Strickland, when he's being so defensive all the time, he's not really staking much of a claim himself. He's just mitigating what is being thrown at him. DDP was pressing the action enough that I think that's, even though the striking differentials in those 3 middle rounds was neck and neck, he was the one moving forward and trying to bring the fight to him more. I think if DDP does that more aggressively and earlier and doesn't respect Sean Strickland as much in the first round, I think he can probably take the first like 3. I'm not saying it's impossible that Sean Strickland wins this. I think DDP respect him a little too much in that fight. Sean Strickland does not hit that hard. DDP has fought dudes who hit harder than him and came forward and kind of imposed his will more. I think if he does this in the rematch, it's going to be, let's say, a 49-46 DDP. Which may have been what it was the first time, but that first fight was so close that it really should have been a draw. Like, I'm glad it wasn't, but it could have been. Like, the first and the 5th round, Sean Strickland. The middle 3 were DDP to me. It really just depends on who you give that second round. But even then, we're talking like, I don't remember the exact striking counts, but like 29 and 30 in round 2, 17 and 19 in this round. Like, because they were so close and there wasn't too much grappling, the judges had to go down the scoring criteria and pull out octagon control, which is basically, or ring generalship, which is just DDP being in the center, pushing Sean Strickland back. And I think that's where Strickland is worse, even if he's being defensive. If Strickland is pushing DDP back, Strickland's winning. He's being pushed back. DDP is the one to make him do that. He did in the first fight. It was hairy. It was tight. I get why people thought Strickland should have won that. I do personally think DDP swiped it. I think it's going to be a lot more obvious this time. I'm going DDP to retain his belt and then give us the Khamzat Chimaev fight, please. Strickland can fight Imavov. Or, in general, if Strickland takes the belt, have him fight Khamzat, DDP fight Imavov. But I think DDP's got this one. I'm going to be going with him. All right, those are my predictions and breakdown for UFC 312, du Plessis versus Strickland 2. I'll see you guys in the next one.